Hello, and welcome to channel Ein Our Key, and I am your host, Voluntary. As promised, I am doing a review of Kent Hovind's so-called dissertation. I have the publicly available version, a PDF document that was posted to WikiLeaks. I'm not going to say anything about the font and fading. This was submitted in 1991, and the programs that made typing look fancy weren't wildly popular at the time. I remember that my college had 2 good printers on the whole campus, and the rest of us had to use dot matrix. Many people still used a typewriter. The PDF is 102 pages long. The last page is labeled 101, indicating that the title page doesn't warrant a page number. That is not a problem. I'm not interested in the dedication, as that is not part of the academic content. For this episode, I'm going to do an overview of the document. The content actually starts with the introduction, which acts as a substitute for the table of contents, which is missing. He describes 15 chapters, but in the document that is available, the volume only contains 4 chapters. I have no way of knowing if that is because that is all Mr. Hovind wrote, or if the person who scanned it for the internet was interrupted by the administrator, singular, of Patriot University, now known as Patriot Bible University. As noted, the table of contents is missing. So are the page numbers. So when I describe something as being on a particular page, I am going to use the page numbers as defined by Adobe Acrobat. Someone wrote in a few page numbers every 10 pages. The chapters aren't numbered in the chapter titles. For instance, on page 9, you will find the first chapter and it does not say chapter 1. One thing to note is the massive repetition. If someone were to strike out every instance of the phrase, evolution is a religion, or evolution is not science, this volume would be considerably shorter than it is now. The introduction also has to substitute for the abstract because that is also missing. The abstract is a concise summary of what the paper intends to establish. It is short, just a couple of paragraphs long, straight to the point, and leaves out the arguments that are eventually used to support the point the author makes. Reading through the introduction, it is apparent that Mr. Hovind has a hard time separating the times when he is supposed to say what his point is supposed to be and making arguments for his points. I cannot fault Mr. Hovind for the missing 11 chapters at this time because they might actually exist at Patriot Bible University. Nor can I fault him for the missing bibliography that should also exist. Although I have an opinion on whether or not they exist, it isn't fair to express my opinion in either direction until I get to the university to verify this for myself. However, this something missing that usually ties into the bibliography, and that is a complete and utter lack of quality citations. Whether quoting or referencing, it is important to describe the source. And he claims to have been informed by many sources. He does have a few direct quotes and describes the source at the time of the quote, which is technically improper. Then again, on page 67, his reference merely says, "Get title." The only time he gives a page number for his references is when it is a direct quote, indicating that we are supposed to rely on his integrity with regards to him describing what a volume says. Even then, he sometimes forgets. When he does reference books and gives a page number, he doesn't give the edition number or publisher, so the page number doesn't mean a lot. To make up for this lack of references, it might be acceptable to use footnotes either at the end of the page or at the end of the chapter, except he doesn't do this. After reading through this, I find the subject of the writing is very varied. In chapter 1, he gives his version of the history of evolution. In chapter 2, he tries to argue that evolution is a religion. Chapter 3 is nothing more than a fallacious argument from consequence, as if that has any impact on the validity of evolution. Chapter 4, he tries to argue the age of the universe. The missing chapters cover the Big Bang, geology, radiometric dating, fossils, and dinosaurs. This is all interesting, but there is a problem with it. If you turn back, you will find that this is, in theory, a dissertation in Christian education. There isn't anything regarding educational theory. How can this be a dissertation in Christian education if it doesn't contain anything about education in it? There is one more very important point contained in the introduction, perhaps the most important point in the whole volume. Mr. Hovind states outright that there is no contribution to the pool of human knowledge in his writings. A doctoral dissertation is supposed to be a contribution to the sum of human knowledge, increasing it by some degree. Now, I have strong opinions on several of the social sciences that make me say that some people with degrees in some of those social sciences don't actually contribute anything, but that is an opinion. Someone who earns a degree in Keynesian economics still added to the knowledge pool of Keynesian economics, even if the field as a whole is rubbish in my opinion. Partway through page 5 and ending on page 6, he describes his writing as a summary of the writings of others. He does state that there are a few parts that are original contributions and describes them with some things in this book I couldn't prove to anyone. He is actually asking the reader to take him on faith in what is supposed to be a doctoral dissertation. Whether one describes a thesis or a dissertation, there must be some contribution to the pool of human knowledge. Asking to be taken on faith with regards to the subject of a dissertation, that is unthinkable. No such a submission will be accepted in any accredited university. By that standard alone, above and beyond the fact that Patriot Bible University is unaccredited and little more than a degree mill, this cannot be considered a dissertation. And by that standard, Mr. Kent Hovind cannot honestly describe himself as a doctor. In my next video on this subject, I will start to analyze the content itself, starting in Chapter 1. Thank you for watching. We're now in the double digits for subscribers, and hopefully we will only keep growing. So please like, share, comment, and subscribe to help my channel grow.